Hello and welcome to the Tech Done For You interview series. I'm Gina Decker and I am here with Kate Beeders. I am so excited to interview Kate. She is my go-to mindset expert on money, anything money related or cash infusion related. She is the gal to go to. And so thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this series with us.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here, Gina. I don't know if you know, but today we have like 2 feet of snow coming.
Oh,
On its way. So I have no idea how much we have right now. So if the chance I lose you, that's why.
okay. Well, I will cover if that happens. I also am in an area with snow, although it's supposed to rain today, so hopefully we won't get that. But today we're going to be talking about how to shatter your inner glass ceiling and become tech savvy. And if you're not familiar with Kate already, I'm just going to read off her bio. Kate Beeders, the breakthrough expert, is the founder of Brilliance Builders, where she teaches how to tap into your zone of brilliance to accelerate your success. Prior to coaching, Kate was a successful business development marketing professional and started her career as a flight attendant, which is the ultimate education in customer experience. Kate was honored on the red carpet in Hollywood by the National Association of Best-Selling Authors for her best-selling book, The Winning Way with Brian Tracy. Over the last 7 years, Kate has helped thousands of people, including myself, go from stuck to successful with the money acceleration system and is a sought out speaker across North America. So thank you, Kate, and welcome.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. And I've got a new book coming out too.
Yes, and it's very exciting because, of course, I have several books out, but they are not best-selling books in the way that yours are by any terms. So, yeah, very excited. I saw the cover of that, and so that's and actually, people can get that on pre-order, can't they?
They can get it on pre-order. I'm on my website, and then in a couple of weeks, it's going to be all Amazon.
Yay! I love Amazon. I love getting things on Amazon.
No kidding. No kidding.
Amazon, so
it's so much easier, right, than having to go mail stuff and all that kind of. Especially if people are all over the place. But
yeah, and who wants to drive to the bookstore in the snow anymore these days? We don't.
Exactly.
We also have Callie here, who is Kate's little girl. Hi, Callie. Okay, so all right, let's get started. Okay, so what does mindset have to do with technology? This is a technology series, but I also think it does definitely have a lot to do with mindset. So could you
totally. I've got 2 huge examples.
Sure.
Can I share them with you? And these are me examples, but just to show you guys how much it has to do with it. So when I first started my business, I worked in a corporation before, Gina, and so we had the tech team and all that stuff. So when they gave us laptops, if anything kind of went screwy or printer didn't work or whatever, they would take care of it. We didn't even have to think about it, touch it, whatever. We would just go call them on the phone, their extension, Bill, can you fix this, Bill, And we wanted them to like us because then they take care of our stuff fast for us. But he never didn't know how to do anything. I mean, even at that point, Word documents, all that stuff. And this was only maybe 10 years ago, Gina. So it's because I started my business 7.5 years ago. So I'm thinking back to when we started all having laptops and all that. And we didn't even know how to do Word documents. So we would have someone do this for us and someone do that for us. All we knew how to do was use a phone. And when I started my own business, all of a sudden, to have a laptop, right? Have a printer, how to do this, how to do that. And I really held back on a lot of stuff because I had this belief that I wasn't tech savvy. And whenever I would talk to somebody or I call a help desk, it's like, well, I'm not very good with technology. And so I identified myself as not very good at technology. So can you see how I was putting myself against, I was already limiting myself. Because that meant there were things I wouldn't try because, oh no, I'm not good at technology. And I already stopped myself without even giving myself a shot. And I went on that way for about a year and a half. And then one day I was working with one of my coaches and I mentioned it to her and she said, well, why don't you just do some mindset work around it? And Gina, all of a sudden I shifted. Not that I think I'm going to go be an expert on mindset. I'm not looking to be, I mean, expert on tapping, expert on really on technology. I'm not looking to be like, let me take apart a computer and put it back together again. That's not what I mean. But now if I see a software online that interests me, if I see a new program, if I want to create something, I have enough intelligence to go figure it out. If I don't know how to figure it out, I know I can go look on YouTube. I can call you as a resource. I mean, but before I wouldn't even have done it. So maybe someone else listening might be thinking that same way, like, oh no, but I'm not tech savvy. And so even if they're thinking of things, or if you as their coach mentions something, they already limit themselves. And once you start thinking of yourself differently, that opens so many more doors for you. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I think a lot of times we have these blocks. I don't feel blocked about technology, but I definitely have other blocks, which we've talked about in detail. But we have these kind of mistaken beliefs, and they really are mistaken. They're not, anybody's story but our own. One of my best phrases from you is return the old story to the library and write a new one,
That's
because
right.
we have all these old stories and these old thoughts, and they're not productive.
That's right. And they hold you back. And the other story I want to share, and I'd love to dive into all that stuff, but I want to share this other story because it just happened. And so just to show people that even though I'm an expert in mindset, I mean, we still have coming up all the time. So I went through something. So speaking of the book, the book was sent to the editor, and the editor then sends me back the manuscript rather. I got to use the correct words. And the editor then sent me back the manuscript. And so what I need to do is I need to go and look at everything she did, her edits or suggestions or corrections, all that stuff, and see, do I agree or do I disagree? And I went on Word, and honest to goodness, every 5 minutes, Gina, my computer was freezing. And you get that little spinny, the circle, I call it like circle of death, the wheel of death. And so I refresh, and then I pop up again and pop up again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get through this book. It's going to take me a year to get through my manuscript because it keeps stopping every 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, again, talking about these fears and doubts, I went into this place like, it's technology, it's not working for me. And then I said, well, gee, maybe it's not this, maybe it's my computer. So I spent time on with Apple Help Desk. And then we figured out it wasn't nothing to do with my computer. Then I called Comcast, which is my internet company. I'm like, well, maybe it's the internet. And it had nothing to do with the internet. And then, well, maybe it's the system I use for backing up. So 3 different companies. I spent like 2 days on help desk calls, Gina. And for anybody listening, if you've ever done that, I think it's pretty frustrating after a while. So finally I said, you know what, I'm just going to call Microsoft. I don't even know if Microsoft has a help desk, but I'm going to call them. And I called them over the phone, and they said, you know what, we're actually having an issue with this last update. That's why you're getting it. That's why you're having so many problems. They walked me through how to fix it. But see, I was going through this story of technology is just not my friend. And so what happens is, for all of us in our businesses, we take things personally. And the reason I'm sharing this story and being kind of open about it is that I was taking it totally personally. It was nothing to do with me. It was Microsoft had a glitch. And then as soon as I realized Microsoft had a glitch, I could let go of all that crap. But to think about, for everybody listening in your business, that when you start going into your story, that something's work, it's not meant to be, all this kind of stuff, it's going to hold you back from being more successful in your business.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And, I work with technology, and occasionally I do get frustrated, even though actually my very first job was at a computer help desk. And so I was the person on the other phone helping people with technology. But we do kind of like get into this mindset like, oh, it's something I did. And of course, sometimes it can be user error, but a lot of times it's a completely other cause. It's outside of your control, and you just have to kind of get the right resources and the right people to help you.
Exactly. But see the reason I shared that story is that we very often we go into taking things personally, and where I also teach sales conversations. So if someone rejects us, we take that personally. Whatever happens, we always own all that stuff. And 9 times out of 10, it's not us. It's all the other stuff. But when you take it personally, that starts eroding your self-confidence, Gina. So if you're always thinking, it's me, it's never going to happen for me, it's never going to work for me, whatever's going on, it's going to keep holding someone back, and then they're not going to be able to move forward in the manner that they'd like.
Yeah. And that's the big part. If we stop ourselves, we can't move forward. And of course, then we're stuck. So how do you determine, if you're having fears and doubts, how do you determine that that's stopping you from growing your business?
I think if you're having fears and doubts, that's stopping you. And the thing is that often you don't know to what extent, because some people go like, oh, I'm just going to push through it, the old corporate mindset, just keep going, or work harder, and that may help you, but this stuff is still there, and I believe that you want to be able to enjoy the process. So back to my example about looking at the manuscript, I was getting so annoyed and aggravated at first. I was just like, I just want to get through this thing. Well, my book is a labor of love, and it shouldn't be that I just want to get through it. So as soon as this thing got fixed, I was able to kind of sit back and relax and read her comments and see what her edits and enjoy it. So you want to be able to not just push through them, but
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, a lot of times, sometimes you just have to think outside the box. Like if that had happened to me on my computer, probably instead of calling Microsoft, I would have, got on Google Docs and said, hey, could you send me the document in Google Docs? Because that also has, I mean, kind of a version of track changes, not quite, the same, but, it's like sometimes we just like, okay, this is the only way to fix it. But usually there's like several other ways that can fix it. And I definitely know for myself, kind of going back to, taking things personally, one of our first homework assignments when I started working with you, and of course, I'm just going to disclose to everybody here, Kate is my coach. So, when I have, trouble with things, I go to her, just because I know that she can get me results. And so, one of our first homework assignments was to reread the chapter of the 4 agreements on, not taking things personally, because I mean, I didn't quite realize that that was my problem, because I thought it was a money problem or a cash flow problem, whatever, but I was definitely taking things personally, and it was mucking me up. I mean, it was a big problem.
And it does for everybody. I mean, I tell a lot of my clients to read it. I just think it's such a great chapter. And because we do, because we're never taught differently as kids. So we think it's something we've done wrong, or that we're not good enough, or we haven't shown up that way, or whatever the heck it is we're telling ourselves, when it usually isn't even that. And so when you're able to kind of put some space and say, wait a minute, it isn't me, it's a computer, it's a Microsoft problem, or it's whatever the heck it is, or it's just this person I'm dealing with is a royal pain in the butt, and it's not me, because we all have clients like that, and we go, well, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. Sometimes it's just the client. Sometimes the client's a jerk and you need to fire the client, right? And it's just being able to kind of take some space and say, like, what is it? What part do you take personal responsibility for? Because like you said, it could be user error, but what part do you also say, okay, there's also something else going on here too.
Yeah, for sure. So how does this all affect the bottom line and the income in our businesses?
In every way, and people don't realize it. They think, well, if only I worked hard, or if I work smart, or if I do this, if I do that, or whatever. It's like this magic bullet. And the truth is that it's not all about some magic bullet. It's really understanding, having the clarity of what it is that you want to create, because that's a big thing, Gina. So many entrepreneurs don't have clarity, or even people in corporate just don't have clarity on what they want to, what they really want. And that sends them all over in a tailspin, because like they'll see one Facebook ad, or hear one speaker, oh, now I'm going to go buy this, or now I'm going to go buy this, or now I'm going to go buy this. When you've got the clarity, wait a minute, this is what I'm doing. And the other stuff, not that it's bad things, but maybe I'll look at them in 6 months, or I'll look at them in a year. Because right now my focus and the most important things are these. So you got to have the clarity. And again, fears, doubts, blocks can stop you from having that, because people often are afraid, like, what if I make the wrong decision, or what if it's not good enough, or what if I can't do it, and you got to be able to give yourself permission to dream big, which is again something that people hold back, especially women, because women are told to like take care of everybody else but themselves. And I believe it doesn't have to be either or, it can be and. Because I believe that when I teach my clients how to show up and take good care of them and great care of themselves, that gives them more to give to everybody else. So it's a win. And it's also understanding, who do you need to be at that next level, right? Because if you're at, let's say, $5,000 a month right now, and you want to make $10,000 a month, that's a different type of mindset. It's not the same thing. You know, the shifts you make, I'm not saying you totally change your personality, you don't, but there's certain, your confidence level is different. How you make decisions starts being different. How you show up starts being different. And so you've got to understand who do I need to be at that next level. So that also is important to know as well. And then shifting your money story, you know, and again, money, you know, when I teach money, and you've heard me, you know, at an event, you know, I spend a lot of time talking about it, but money is just an outcome. And so, but yet people have so much fear, panic, all sorts of things. They judge themselves by how much money they have. And it's being able to really realign your money story. And like, you know, like you were quoting me, you know, it's time to write a new one. Because if you always give money all the power and you've got all this fear around money, then you're never going to make the money you want. But if you're able to create a good partnership with money, so money works with you, you know, no one's in charge, you know, and you know how to use it. And I actually posted on Facebook the other day that, you know, like to me, a middle class mindset is when you have a budget, and an abundance mindset is when you put together a money plan. So budget to me seems very limiting, very lack, whereas a plan, it's like, you know, it's like more you're in control and you're focused and you're determined and it's a place of confidence and a place of brilliance.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these, you know, we talked about it already, but it goes back to those old stories, you know, in childhood. And I know definitely, you know, one of the things that has helped me a lot was EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping, and you're an expert in that and have certifications in it and everything. And I've been tapping, you know, every day, and I didn't quite realize how much that had to do with the success or failure of my business, you know, just because, you know, I had these mindsets and I was tapping, but it was kind of just self-directed tapping. And so when we started working together one-on-one, like it made such a huge difference because I had these very specific things that I had to tap on, and then we customized it. And I loved that. I mean, it was just so good, you know, just because I would get kind of from time to time, like stuck on a person or, you know, just, you know, something that was irritating me, and I'd be stuck for a while. Like it was, you know, keeping me stuck in a lot of different areas. And I think you don't always realize that these are very, very old. Like, would you let a 4-year-old inform your business decisions, you know, or a 6-year-old? I mean, these are very old stories.
Yeah, they're very old. And I wrote a blog about it because we make so many decisions with a kindergarten mind. And, you know, and that's because we let that kindergarten rule ourselves. And so what's really frightening to think about, especially if you're having your own business, is that you're letting you know, when I say you, I'm talking about the collective you. You let a 4-year-old make decisions on, you know, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, what you're going to price things at, who you're going to work with. You know, the 4-year-old will be like, I want everyone to like me. I want lots of friends, right? So then you take on all these lousy clients or people that I don't necessarily mean they're bad people, but they're not like your people. Or you help people in 10 different niches. You know, when I first learned about tapping, and if you saw my first website, Gina, I probably had about 24 different things I could help you with, you know, anywhere from sugar cravings to fear of flying, to fear of public speaking, to talking abundance, to everything, quitting smoking. I mean, you name it. And it's because the little kid in me just wanted to help everybody, right? You know, and it's whereas the adult in me is like, wait a minute, that's just, you know, too much. It's too broad. The adult in me knows, you know, I've got to like hone in on who do I really want to work with, what I really am interested in, all that kind of stuff. So the little kid, you know, so in a nutshell, to kind of explain mindset, you got your conscious and your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is till about 6 or 7, and it's just taking everything in. It's just absorbing everything. And the example I like to use a lot is like an iPhone right here. And let's say, Gina, if you went and bought an iPhone the exact same day as me, let's say we both went to the cell phone, you know, the Verizon store, we both bought our phones, right? Both got the iPhone 8. And, you know, we go home and we download music. Well, I put my music in, and I've got very eclectic takes. I've got musicals, and I've got classical, and I've got stuff that's cool now and stuff that was cool in the 80s and 90s, and, you know, all over the place. I don't have any rap because I'm not into rap, but I've got music all over the place. But let's say you put your music on, and let's say, you know, you love rap. I don't know if you do or not, but let's pretend you do. When we both download that music into our iPhones, our iPhone doesn't sit there and say, you know, hey, where's the rap? And it's not judging my songs. It's not going, hey, this song's kind of old. You shouldn't put this on me, you know, or this song's not cool anymore. It just puts the music in. And the same with yours. It doesn't say, hey, how come you don't have a variety? It just puts all your rap in and it's done. And our minds are the same way as little children, that we just take everything in. So when you hear an adult say things like rich people are evil, or money doesn't grow on trees, or no one in our family has ever been a millionaire, or nobody in our family has ever gone to college, or nobody in our family has whatever, or girls can't do this, or boys can't do that, whatever you hear as a little kid, parents, teachers, grandparents, older siblings, neighbors, anybody, nowadays the kids with the internet and the TV and all that kind of stuff, you take it as truth. It's just like the iPhone, your mind isn't going to judge. Your mind wouldn't say, if you heard as a little girl, well, they can't be good at science and technology and all that. I mean, you wouldn't sit there and say, but what about Madame Curie? You know, you wouldn't sit there and say any of that stuff, right? You would just kind of take it in and go, okay, you go out and play with your toys or your dolls or whatever. And so our brain is not developed enough to go have those conversations. So we learn that stuff as little kids, and we take it to be our truth growing up. So then when you become an adult, you start making your decisions based on no one in my family, girls aren't good at this, nobody in my community, whatever you were told, that becomes how you start framing your life.
Yeah, and I think that's, really important, and, just thinking back for myself, I was always taught as a kid that you had to work really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Study hard, work hard. It's one of the things my dad used to say. He actually used to say, kind of like in a snarky way, like, study hard, get an A, become an astronaut, because I kind of grew up, during the space race. And so, so it's like kind of shoot for the stars, and that served me in college, because I was pushing myself academically. I was always getting A's. But once I entered the workplace, I noticed there was this disconnect, because there's this kind of need to maintain the status quo. And then all of a sudden, me and my hard work ethic didn't fit in, and I was, I was working, I worked for many years in higher education. I worked in, both, for-profit, not, universities and nonprofit universities. And I just could never quite fit in. And it was because my way of determining self-worth and achievement was all based on, like, study hard, get an A, that it had to be hard. And of course, when I started my business full-time, everything was hard,
Right.
and everything required a whole lot of effort on my part. But then I was seeing these other business owners who were doing half or less than what I was doing. And I was like, how can they be making more money than I am making, and still be successful? And it's because they economize, they focus, kind of like what you said, with the niching. They knew their niche and they knew sales very well, so they were very savvy about the things that they knew they were good at. And then they kind of delegated the rest out. And so, I was probably, just shocked when I first kind of heard the term beachpreneur. I'm like, what is,
Mm-hmm.
You're working hard on the beach, come on, So, I mean, it was hard for me to understand that you can still make money and not work hard, that it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to work, a ton of hours, all of that.
Well, I call it working smart.
Yes.
But one thing I want to share with you, and this is really important, and I'm going to say it in a very sensitive way, because you've lost your dad. I lost my dad. It'll be a year. This is so weird. It's just like flies by. That as little kids, especially if we're close to our parents, and it can also happen the opposite way too. If we're not close to our parents, their family vows. So when we learn something from our parents, and especially girls with their dads, it creates a connection, and we want to keep that relationship with our dad. That's a little girl in us, and so we want to keep that. And so when we grow up and say, like, let's say you decide, working hard, it's important, but maybe I need to work differently now as an entrepreneur. That what happens is a little kid will kick in and say, but wait a minute, that's not what Daddy taught us. And so what happens is, and you don't want to break that family vow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's also a lot of conflict there too. And it's being able to let go in a respectful way, say, yes, this served me great in college. I'm in a new place in my life, so I want to reframe what he taught me. And really, and what the bottom message was. And maybe not so literal, but what was his message, right? His message was really, go after what you want and work for it, right? So it's kind of reframing it. But as little kids take everything very literally, exactly how it's said. So that's the whole thing. And so we're constantly battling. And I'm not saying we're not schizophrenics. That's not what I'm talking about. But we're always battling the little kid in us who wants to do it one way, and then the adult in us who is looking at it more from a present way, like what makes sense for me right now.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to kind of, make that leap, just things that we were told when we were little to be good girls, to please dad. And of course I was a daddy's girl. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
I was totally following whatever he told me, so, but actually I have something cool to show you. I just got this yesterday. I competed yesterday in an international speech contest for Toastmasters.
Oh, so
So this
cool.
says, you can't really see it, but Area 14 2018 speech contest, I took first place. And so, and I talked about actually the name of the speech was Italy for Bucket Listers.
Uh-huh.
And for those of you who don't know me and how I kind of got to know Kate, but basically, my dad was ill, when we first met, and I actually saw you speak on stage at a marketing event in kind of LA area, and you gave your speech about kind of go no go, just mindset and everything like that, and that really kind of appealed to me. But at the time, my dad was very sick, and he did pass away. And so, but I learned from you. I actually took a quick cash infusion course, where we learned how to create vision boards, and we learned how to do affirmations and vision statements, and I had no idea that really had anything to do with my bottom line, but it really did. And I was so stoked. I mean, this is kind of my testimonial, but I was just so pleased that I generated really the exact amount that I needed to go to, and at the time I wanted to go to Italy. That was on my bucket list. And so, by taking that course and following the steps and kind of retraining my mind to say, okay, it's okay to generate some extra money if I want to go on a vacation. Because my dad used to say, if you can't eat it, you don't need it, things like that. I didn't need to go to Italy, but I wanted to go to Italy. And so, I generated enough money to go on this delayed honeymoon with my husband to Italy, and I talked about it in my speech. And people were really inspired because a lot of times we just, oh, this is silly, this vision board thing, it's just it's weird, it feels weird, even tapping feels weird. I mean, you're kind of tapping like acupuncture points. I mean, it just seems foreign because we didn't grow up with these techniques. But I was so excited to have generated, and proud of myself to have actually manifested that money and know that I could do it, because prior to that, I was just like, well, I don't have the money to go, it's not important, I had all this old story. Yeah.
And you guys had a great time, didn't you?
We did. We had a blast. We went all over Italy. We went to the Sistine Chapel. We went to Cinque Terre, which is a beautiful fishing town along the Italian Riviera, and we just had a blast. We went everywhere. Well, actually, this is what I'm wearing. This is actually a silk Italian scarf that I got in Rome, and then this coat that I'm wearing, you can't really see it because I'm sitting down, but it is from Florence, Peruzzi leather. So yeah, I mean, I treated myself, and I just didn't really have that in my mindset before. I can buy a really nice leather coat if I want, and treat myself, and it actually took losing my dad to realize, okay, it's okay to dream things and want things and generate the money to get them.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And what I love so love about your story is that you had this intention, and it was really so much from your heart. and you did it. You took the action, you made it happen, and you have done this several times, coming to my event, all sorts of things. And so what I love is that as you've learned how to do it, now you can do this anytime in your life, right? And that's really powerful, Gina.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and it's so exciting to learn these techniques. I mean, because like you mentioned, I mean, we started with the quick cash infusion course, and then I went to Boston, and I have some family in Boston, so I stayed with them, and then we went to Wellesley College, which is this prestigious, college for women in Boston. It was beautiful, the swans, everything, and so, it goes actually back to mindset, because I'm just like, well, I don't have the money to stay in the hotel room at the college, and so I'm going to stay with I wanted to stay with my family, but I took public transit, and I took every I think it was maybe that first day after the training, I took every wrong train line coming. I mean, I took the right train lines, but the wrong direction,
Oh, no.
and so it was probably midnight before I got home. And I realized, this is actually what I'm doing in my business. I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm going to, be on this tight budget, and I'm going to do, I'm going to get on the right trains, but not, in the right direction for me and my business, the specialized, and then it took by the third, day of training, we had all our breakthroughs and everything. And somebody actually, at a subway station said, oh, you can just you can look it up on your phone. It actually tells you when the next stop is and stuff like that, because of course they have this garble, they kind of announce the next stop, and you have no idea what they're saying on these trains. So that was what I was doing with my business. I was kind of just trying to, figure it out myself, and, bang my head against the wall, and all I needed was just to hire you. Okay, these are the steps, and go do them. So, yeah.
Well, it's the same when they hire you, they hire me. Whenever you hire an expert, it just makes everything so much easier. And like you said, which is such a great metaphor, just puts you in the right direction.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's simple. It's easy. Yeah. So we did mention a book. So you do have a book coming out. Can you please tell us the title of that? I will link to it. When we send out the replay, I will link to the book, and so that people can get it or pre-order it on your website, because I think that's, really exciting, to have a book like that, and to actually kind of, you just introduce yourself to these concepts without really having, you don't have to do everything that I did, but necessarily. But, what's the title of that book again?
The title of the book is Go or Don't Go, which you heard me speak about when I was the keynote.
Yeah, I remember that speech. Yeah, and you were having the audience say, go. It's kind of interactive.
Well, when my dad passed away last year, and I had the honor, I held one of his hands, Gina, when he took his last breaths. And it's a very, I don't know, there's no other way of this. It's the most powerful experience, I think. And I just decided, for me too, I thought I was playing a big game. You always think you do. And then you realize, you know what, maybe not so much. And that propelled me. And I've been thinking about writing this book for a while, and kind of been putting it off, not the right time. And that just kind of was the kick in the butt, that experience of with my dad, his last couple of days, with just my dad's life, my life, it all had to mean something. That's why I wrote the book. I didn't, if it's another bestseller, awesome, but that's not why I did it. I really did it because I just feel I have this stuff inside of me, and it needed to come out. And all the stuff I've been teaching you and teaching clients, and I'm really proud of it. It's a great book. We're at the final steps now, so it'll be on Amazon, for the next few weeks, which is great. And I'm really proud of it. Really proud of it.
Yeah, and I think that's really, important that you mentioned that, because, I think one of the reasons why kind of I did want to work with you as my coach is, we kind of did have this similar relationship with our dads, and of course everybody's, grief is different, but, we had both kind of gone through this, grieving process, and, kind of come out on the back end of it, wiser and that sort of thing. But I definitely know, since I also saw my dad take his last breath, it was an honor, and it really made me realize, every breath is sacred. Like every moment that we have on this earth is sacred. We can't squander that time. And actually it's like tomorrow is the 1 or 2 year, it's been 2 years for me, the 2 year anniversary of my dad, passing. And it was pivotal for me. It was the worst day of my life, actually, to see him die. But it was also, a lesson. And I think he chose me. He was comfortable with me and my mom being there in the room, when he made his transition. So I think, it was an honor to see that happen. And it was a huge learning experience for me, and it was hard. Oh gosh, it was the hardest thing, ever, just because to see a loved one suffer is hard.
It is. And that's where you can't do it immediately, but it's taking the lesson and then choosing. So how, after being given this gift, so then choosing how do you want to live your life?
Yeah. Yeah. And it actually made things, some things just very clear to me, where I was not clear before. It did give me clarity. Okay, these are the tasks that, I was afraid to say that, I like this better than that or whatever. And I was just trying to please other people, and I was letting them direct me, and all these other experts, I was listening to them. I was not listening to myself, but, it really kind of,
I don't mean literally crazy, but I'm just saying it can, when you've got all these different influences telling you do this thing, do this thing, do this thing. And as a result, you end up just like spinning the wheels.
Yeah. But having that focus, I mean, it makes a world of a difference. It really does. Because then when you see something like that, you're like, okay, well, I've only got so much, so many breaths in me, and of course I'm, for those of you who don't know, I'm expecting. And so, who knows, when you're watching the replay, I might already have had the baby by then. But, it sets, it's like, it teaches you to set your intention.
Mm-hmm.
And to execute on those intentions, and to really be confident in that, because there's like these different zones, there's the freak out zone, which I think we all still go through. And then there's like this, this kind of a safety zone. And then, there's the brilliance zone, and it's, kind of stepping into the brilliance and giving yourself, permission to do that. It's huge.
It's very huge. And very often, I mean, sometimes, my clients aren't able to do it for themselves. So I have to start off by giving them permission, and because sometimes they need that just to step into it. And because some people, that's, you figure all these years of conditioning, whatever you've been told, whatever your story is, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you're all across the board, right?
Yeah. So you, kind of going back, about emotional freedom technique. Can you explain to, the people who probably, haven't used that very much, what that is, and why why it helps with mindset?
Yeah, so in my business, I actually use a couple of different mindset techniques. One is laws of attraction, tapping, which the initial form is called emotional freedom technique, EFT. And now I'm also pulling in neuroscience. So Gina, someday we'll be talking about that. It's very cool. And so what tapping, emotional freedom technique is the basic form of it. I do tapping, which is a much more sophisticated, more advanced, faster results and all that. And what basically in a nutshell is that it's shifting old fears and doubts and old stories, things like that. And so if you've got these fear of public speaking, fear of flying, fear it won't work, fear of it's going to be hard, overwhelmed, stress, whatever your thing is, it helps you release it. And the way it looks really goofy, because it's kind of like Simon says, that people repeat after me and they tap on their face or upper body where I tell them to tap. And there's a whole science behind it, because if you watch it, it looks really easy. Like when I tell you to do it, I mean, it just looks easy to follow along. But that's because I'm so highly trained. There's a whole science that's going on behind what I have you say, when I have you say it. And it's meant to be very, very fast moving, but in a very gentle way. There's a technique, for example, if you've got a fear of elevators, and they'll have you ride up and down an elevator 100 times. And they figure, well, by the 100th time, you'll be just numb to it all. But that's kind of frightening if you've got a fear of elevators. Tapping is not meant to frighten you or scare you. It's meant to be this very gentle, graceful technique that helps you to shift things and be able to put things in perspective, take space away from it. And, you know, for me, I'm all in favor about whatever works. I'm from Boston, and Boston's very traditional. When I first started doing tapping, you know, in Boston 7, 8 years ago, people looked at me like I was insane. You know, they didn't get it. And, you know, people started working with me because they knew I got results, and that's all they really cared about. And that's really the whole point, is how can I help somebody, whatever's holding them back. And I had this gift that I'm able to kind of put what's holding someone back, that whatever's going to help them, whether it's the tapping, whether it's law of attraction, whether it's taking action, whatever the heck it is, I want to help you shift. Because that's what's keeping you stuck, and I believe we're all here to be here in our brilliance. And when you're playing a small game, you're not in your brilliance.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And I think you also teach, you know, some additional tapping points that, you know, because when I first started tapping, I was just, you know, watching Brad Yates on YouTube. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I was so impressed by you when I first met you. I was just like, well, she actually taught Brad Yates, you know, about money mindset and stuff, you know, and I follow Brad Yates on YouTube. He's got probably, I don't know, 800 videos about tapping. But do you mind actually demonstrating around a tapping so that people can kind of see what that is?
I'll do a very quick round.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason is I like to just I don't want to do anything too extensive. Is this is being done over the internet, and I always tell people, when you deal with mindset work, you have to be responsible for your own mental health, your own well-being. Meaning, if it bothers you, just stop tapping. You know, you're not here, you're not at my event, you're not on a coaching call with me, you're not at a retreat with me. I can't see what's going on for you. So if it bothers you, stop. And what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to have you just kind of follow along with me.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want you to think about before we start tapping is, I'm going to assume the way Gina's talking about it, that most of you probably haven't tapped. So just how much you think that kind of a goofy technique can actually help you shift a fear or doubt. And 0, like, of course it can. You know, why wouldn't it? And 10, like, no way, this is going to be wacky and crazy, and why the heck am I even doing it? So just think about what your number is, and then you can take a couple of deep breaths, and then we'll do some tapping. I'm going to take a sip of water here.
I'm going to do that too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're going to follow along with me. You're going to tap on the side of your hand, and you're going to tap where I'm tapping and repeat after me. Even though I don't believe there's this goofy technique called tapping.
There's this goofy technique called tapping
that could actually help me.
I
want to find a way to love and accept myself. Even though I don't believe that this goofy technique called tapping could actually release my fears and doubts. I want to find a way to love and accept myself. Even though I can't believe I'm doing this silly technique called tapping. And whether it's silly or not, I'm open and willing to try it and see what happens. And I love and accept myself for that. Take your hands out. And you're just going to follow along with me, okay? And so the inner eye, just repeating after me.
Tapping is silly.
I can't believe I'm doing this.
It looks really goofy.
Who the heck made this up?
It
looks goofy. How in the heck is it ever going to help me? How is it going to, and we're at the liver point, which is, how's it even going to help me? I don't think it could. Looks kind of silly. How's it going to help me? Release fears and doubts. Old stories. My beliefs around money. My lack of self-confidence. My fear of failure. Fear of success. All the other stories I've been telling myself. How the heck could this help me? So what if it could?
But what if it could?
It's been used by millions and millions of people.
It's been used by millions and millions of people.
And most of them have seen results.
Most of them have seen results.
Why couldn't it help me?
Why couldn't it help me?
Imagine if it could.
Imagine if it could.
Imagine if it could help me shift fears and doubts.
Imagine if it could help me shift fears and doubts.
Imagine if it could help me release old stories.
Imagine if it could help me release old stories.
Imagine if it could help me feel more confident.
Imagine if it could help me feel more confident.
Imagine if it could help me feel more focused.
Imagine if it could help me feel more focused.
Imagine if I could get more clarity.
Imagine if I could get more clarity.
And keep myself safe.
And keep myself safe.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take a nice deep breath. Inhale slowly through your nose. Seconds, and blow out really slowly through your mouth. Blow out through your hip windows. And typically you should feel good. See, Gina's got a nice smile on her face.
You can feel the baby kicking.
Okay.
Like
baby.
to.
And you know, you should notice that your number, whatever initially was, you check back in and your number should have dropped. And if it stayed the same, don't be afraid. It doesn't mean this didn't work. It just means other things are popping up. You might have some new fears or doubts or old stories pop up. And that's perfectly normal. Just write those down. It just means those are things you need to clear up.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for demonstrating that. And I did want people to see it just because I definitely know when I took your course in Quick Cash Infusion, like, you know, after the armpit, you know, point, there's a liver point, and then there's like kind of a wrist point. And so knowing those extra points, I think, does help. And then double tapping, I was kind of doing one side. But I mean, I think you just, you know, you have kind of this extra powerful, you know, way of tapping. And so if people, you know, want to learn more about you, of course, they can email me, Gina@techdoneforyou.com, and I can introduce you, or it's the email address for them to reach you if they have questions.
Yeah, that would be info@Kate Beeders, and that's KateBeeders.com. And just say that you saw me on Gina's interview and you want to talk to me about working together. Okay,
so I'm putting it in the chat, info@KateBeeders.com. And again, that book is Go or Don't Go. Yeah, and so I will link to that. I'm excited for that to come out, and I'm sure it's going to be another bestseller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody who reads it, please write a testimonial on Amazon once it comes out.
Yes, yes, and I'm sure I will do that since I've written many testimonials. Everything that I've done and followed of yours has worked for me. I would not have this this scarf from Italy in the jacket without that. So, all right. So I'm going to unmute Becky. I'm not sure if she's able to ask questions, but we have about. We're right at the end of our presentation, and so I don't know, actually, is it going to unmute? And you can always type in the chat, Becky, if you have any. Okay, so you're unmuted, Becky. Do you have any questions?
I don't, but I'm glad to meet you, Kate.
Do you have any takeaways for Kate? Anything that you particularly enjoyed?
I've been tapping for a while now, but I learned some new points today, so that was good to learn, and how tapping could be used towards businesses. That was wonderful to see that different side of it for a change.
Yeah, it's been great with my clients, just helping people shift their fears or doubts, old stories, and you know, otherwise they end up playing too small a game, and that's not why we're here.
Yeah, I'm wondering why I didn't meet you years ago.
Now, so that's all good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and definitely that email address, info@katebeeders.com, or if you don't remember that, Gina@techdoneforyou.com. You know, just let me know, you know, if you want to be introduced to Kate. You know, it's definitely kind of, not kind of, shifted my mindset in my business by knowing Kate, by working with Kate. So if the book comes out, we're very excited about that. That's Go or Don't Go. So thank you so much, Kate, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Gina, for having me. And I'm excited to hear what you got.
Yes, yes. Okay, so thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.